Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to a very special episode of the show here. We've got, as you can see, a very special guest, lead vocalist of Dream Theater. The great James LaBrie is here joining us on the Zoom. James, welcome. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing okay, doing all right. Thanks
Excellent.
for taking some time out of your day to talk to us because we got some cool things to talk about. So, for those of you,
Absolutely.
if you're following James and his career in the band and whatnot, you probably know James has a very cool solo album that came out in 2022 called "Beautiful Shades of Gray" on Inside Out
Hmm.
Music.
Yeah.
Very cool release. That if you
Oh,
haven't
thank you.
heard it, you need to check it out. So James, so this you've had a kind of long history with Inside Out Records, and this is your first collaboration though with Paul. How does Paul say his name? Loge? Is that how Paul's
Logue.
Logue?
Logue.
Okay, so Paul Logue from Eden's Curse, a band we talked
Right.
about here on the channel quite a bit, who
Uh-huh.
plays a bass and acoustic guitar on the album and co-wrote all the songs with you.
Hmm.
So how did you guys hook up?
Years ago, I'd say 2010, he got in touch with our management and they asked that I guess on one of their songs, No Holy Man. And so I sang on that song with their then vocalist Michael Eden, I believe his
Yep.
name is. So I did that song, and throughout preparing to sing that track, I started listening to a bit more of Eden's Curse, and I was like, this is some pretty cool stuff. I really like it. So one day I was talking to Paul, and I inquired. I said, "Who's writing this stuff? Like, who's your main composer?" And he goes, "I am." And I went, wow. I said, well, I love your style. I said, it kind of brings me back to the classic rock days, but it does sound contemporary. It's in the groove where you should be nowadays to be relevant. And I said, we should, if you want, let's do an album together. He goes, oh my God, you tell me when I'm there. So long story short, years went by and we had just finished Dream Theater doing the shoot for our latest DVD in London in February of 20, and I bumped into Paul in Glasgow at the airport, and so he had lost my info. He was still emailing me on my old email address, and I said, "Oh my God, I haven't had that for years." Anyways, so he said, "You heard about this virus?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm hearing about it." And he goes, "Well, if that comes crashing down on everyone, you want to go for it?" And I said, "Yeah, if we're going to be sitting around," I said, "For sure." So that's how that was the catalyst. It was just he had happened to be at the show the night before, which was our last show in Glasgow, and so it just serendipitous as it was, we kind of bumped into one another, and that's what was the catalyst to get this going. And it
I
was
guess
great.
it's kind of cool because you have worked with a lot of other artists. You've done lots of
Hmm.
guest starring on other albums. So I guess
Right,
that's a good way to kind of keep those little relationships always open because you never know when an
right.
opportunity like this might kind of fall into your lap.
Well, true enough, and I've always said, everybody in Dream Theater, we've always worked with other musicians. We do, the side thing here and there with somebody that we have that mutual respect for. And I always feel that you take from those experiences and it enriches you as a musician. You're able to bring that back to the table, so to speak, with Dream Theater, and really it just cultivates who and what you are, because you're not necessarily going down that Dream Theater avenue. You're exploring other avenues musically, which makes you that much more well-rounded and educated, and expressive. So to me, I love it because even working with someone like Paul, he's very well, first of all, he's greatly talented, and he's one of the nicest guys I've ever met in the world. And he was just very intelligent, and we were always on the same page. Whenever I'd be throwing him ideas like riffs or melodies that I had, he'd come back right away with something that was just gorgeous and put around it those ideas, and then vice versa. You know, he'd throw me stuff, I'd come right back at him with, and so the whole unfolding of all these songs that you've heard on Beautiful Shade of Gray, it it was just so much fun. And you know, and then having um, Christian and Marco, who were also involved, the keyboard and lead guitar, they were phenomenal too, with just being able to put their, you know, icing on the cake. And then having Chance, my son, play drums in that, and he was very instrumental in when we were having these ideas and that he got involved with a lot of the arrangements and, you know, hey guys, let's trim the fat here. Come on, what are you guys doing? And he was kind of our barometer for going, you know, that doesn't translate to me, guys. And which was great because we kept referring to ourselves as, we're the old men, don't worry about it. You know, keep us keep us grounded, right? And it was great because he goes, no, I'm going to tell you. He goes, I don't want to do something like that. I don't think that's right, or whatever. And it was never anything that was like, oh my God, as if you guys are doing this. It was just, hey, can we kind of tweak this or tweak that? And so the whole experience, it was great because I think it did help keep our sanity, each and every one of us, because we were focused on that. And at the same time, I was starting to write with Dream Theater, you know, for our latest album. So you know, all these things kind of helped do with that incarceration, the global right elephant on everyone's back. But yeah, so it was a great experience. Yeah, for sure.
And how much of a thrill was it for both you and Chance to really work so closely together on
Oh
this?
my God, yeah, it was surreal, to be quite honest with you, because and I've said this several times in other interviews, is I would be in the booth, the vocal booth back here, and and I just, you know, I'd sing a verse or whatever, or a part of a chorus, and then I go, hang on a second, Chance, hang on. And he goes, what's going on, Dad? And I said, that very thing is going on. That, you know, I'm working with my son,
Yeah.
and you know, and the other thing too, you know, like you just kind of think, you can't help but think, right? You're going, okay, wait a minute. 23 years ago, I was hanging on to this guy, you know, and he was a baby. Now he's actually involved. He's an accomplished musician, and here we are working on something. It's you know, a lot of people can't say that, you know, that they have that opportunity, and I never took it for granted. I felt very blessed to be able to, that we have that interaction. And even Chance has said to me, he says, you know, that it's immeasurable what that experience did for me, you know, and it just brought us together even on a different level. And so yeah, it was a great experience. It really was. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
One of the things that hit me right off the bat with listening to the new album is that it's much more, especially from a guitar perspective, it's much more acoustic based,
Mm-hmm.
which brings some new flavors here. And you know,
Yep.
Marco, you've worked with Marco quite a bit in the past, and
Yes.
he does a wonderful job as always
Mm-hmm.
here. And I think, you know,
Mm-hmm.
you've got the Christian's keyboards, which add that element. But
Mm-hmm.
how did the idea first start to maybe make this more of an acoustic based uh, arrangement overall, and less of like riffy type of, you know, things that maybe you
Yeah.
were known for in the past? Because I think it works really, really well. And the album, to me anyway, doesn't sound any less rockin', which is
Right.
kind of neat, even though it's not that big bombastic riffy type of progressive metal or heavy rock
Correct. Correct. Well, that came from, basically that's what I wanted to do. When Paul and I actually sat down and we started discussing, okay, what direction we do want to do, what kind of an album do we want to produce, I knew right away. In fact, even when like I said earlier, when I bumped into Paul in Glasgow, I said, listen, if we do this, I want you to wrap your head around this. I want to do an acoustic based album. You know, I said we can still have it so that there's a full let me back up. Originally, we were thinking that it was just going to be acoustic guitar and voice. And then at one point, we already had started working on Devil and Drag. And you know, as great as it was sounding, I went, you know what, Paul, I gotta tell you, and I'm gonna ask you what your opinion is, because that was the other thing too. Our communication, it was just, you know, being completely honest with one another, and leaving our egos at the door. But I said to him, I go, I can't help but think that we're going to overstay our welcome if we do just an acoustic guitar and vocal, it's going to be like we sat around the campfire far too long that evening, you know? And he goes, you know what? I'm completely behind you. I get that. I was also having those thoughts. And I said, okay, then let's bring in an ensemble. And that's when Christian, Marco, and Chance came on board. At the same time, I said, you know, even though we have now what would be considered the full band criteria, we still need to really keep it organic sounding. And, you know, a lot of that, Cornelius, who mixed our album, the production end of it is just beautiful. It's gorgeous. Now, a lot of that came from Christian creating all these sounds, making it extremely atmospheric. Marco working on his guitar sounds for the solos, and especially Paul all the way through. You know, recording the 6-string and the 12-string guitars and making it like a, you know, like you had 1,000 guitars in the background. I mean, that really adds to it. Then Chance really working on the drums and the percussion. It all came together that way. And then myself saying, okay, now the vocals are going to be, you're naked, you're out front, which is a beautiful thing, because I said, now everyone is, not that you haven't heard it in Dream Theater, but I knew that this would be exceptional illumination, so to speak, with a vocalist being able to hear all the nuances and inflections and being very subtle, and at times still being able to sing with power. That just added, you know, something that would really make these songs speak loudly to the individual. Because to me, it's or what I've heard from a lot of fans is, you know, they'll put the headphones on, be in a dark room, and crank it up, and they say, man, I'm hearing something different each and every time I listen to these songs, and it just envelops them. And that was the whole goal, is that the songs can still be great. I also used Zeppelin as our you know, model, and I said, you know, here's a band that they were considered, you know, hard rock, and they were even considered heavy metal back in the day, but that they always maintain this the fundamentals of being just a grounded, like they could sit in a garage and play and just jam together in an acoustic setting and you'd still be moved.
Yeah.
You know, and they have several songs like that. So, and you know, they've always been one of my favorite bands. I mean, you know, you got an ensemble there, you know, John Paul Jones and Jimmy Page, Robert Plant, John Bonham, one of the greatest.
Yep.
You know, but they were always able to maintain that any one of their songs, if you played it acoustically, you'd still be moved.
Yeah, I mean, that's a point I was going to make, that these songs on your album still pack that punch, even though it's not hitting you with like big bombastic, you know, guitars and keyboards and drums, right?
Correct.
So,
yeah,
but they're still very emotional sounding.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think, you know, one of the, as I'm going through this album, you know, now a bunch of times, I'm thinking, for those fans who are watching who maybe haven't heard this record yet, I mean, some really superb vocals from you on this album.
Oh,
and
thank
I think
you.
it's cool hearing you in this sort of setting for a complete work. And I guess my question for you is, you know, you guys, Dream Theater, you guys do a lot of touring. You're out on the road quite often.
Yeah.
How are you keeping your voice like so in such great shape? I mean, because you sound absolutely excellent on this album.
Oh, thank you.
I caught you guys live not that long ago when you were touring through the U.S. I catch you guys every year, and I'm always amazed at how well your voice holds up from tour to tour, year to year, and now, you know, 30 odd years on. So
yeah,
you do it.
Yeah, I mean, well, thank you very much, first and foremost. It's a lot of work, you know. I mean, because our average shows with Dream Theater are 2 to 3 hours, and you know, I've always said, unless you're a singer and you've toured extensively and you've been doing it for as long as we have, then you understand that it's quite the feat. You know, I'm reading a book right now by Phil Collins, not dead yet, and he's talking about, you know, I'm at this part in the book where he was on the road, he's singing, he's having the difficulty, and I guess he comes clean with doing prednisone and cortisone and all this shit to get through. And I will be right up front. I've had to do that a few times in our career, but not to the extent that he's alluding to, that he did it so often that his bones are brittle now. And but the only times that I had ever, and I think it's been 3 times in my total career, is when, yeah, you got to go up in front of 40,000 people, even though you're sicker than a dog and you got hardly any voice. Can you do it this one time just to get through the show? Yeah, I guess I'll make an exception, but that's bullshit. I don't like doing that because it's just not a good deal. Yeah. And you could do, who knows what the hell you're doing. You feel great and you sound pretty damn good considering, but that's not right. Anyways, but besides that, I think what it's been is that I'm just extremely dedicated and focused with staying in good shape, and like drinking plenty of fluids and vitamins, and doing my my walking on the treadmill. And now I'm starting to do a little bit of weights. I've been doing that since last May. I started getting into weightlifting, but nothing drastic. I don't want to look like.
You don't want to look like John?
No, I don't want to look like John. Although I said, John, I'm going to give you some competition, and he's like, bring it on, man. But I think that it's all these things. And then, the way that I go about with my voice, I warm up very slowly. And then I cool down after shows. I don't drink or smoke when I'm on tour. When I'm off tour, yeah, I'll like my red wine, or I'll like a bourbon, or, whatever. If or my Guinness is probably my favorite beer. But for the most part, I'm extremely clean. And I think that's kept me where I am, and it's just, I have to always think about it. I mean, you got these vocal folds, and after they're gone, you're done. It's not, and with all due respect to every other instrumentalist and musician out there, I mean, they can change their strings or change their, sticks or drum heads or whatever, it might be. And a vocalist doesn't have that opportunity. So yeah,
that's it.
It's several things that you have to do to just, and eating healthy all the time too, like eating the fruit and the vegetables, and, getting, and I still eat meat. So, but I don't think I gorge on it. I've pulled that way back as well. But so I think all these things, they help for sure.
As we get older, and you and I are probably about the same age, it's like you have to watch these things, right? Even if you're not singing for Dream Theater, as we get older,
do.
It's very important. So
yeah, and I'm seeing it like, well, like, hey, everyone knows. I mean, you just got to go onto my portfolio, but I'll be 60 in May, and yeah, you always got to start thinking about, hey, man, when you see a friend of yours and he's got heart problems, or you see another friend and he's has high blood pressure or cholesterol, issues, you start going, hey, just count yourself very fortunate that you're not running into these situations at this point, but don't bring it on. Don't aggravate the situation. Right. For sure. Exactly. Yeah.
So we've seen you take your solo band out on small tours before. In fact, I caught you guys in Poughkeepsie, New York, at the Chance of many years ago.
Oh my God, that was 2005, by the way.
Was that 2005? Holy
2005. Cow. I've got it all marked down. But that was the last time that I took out my solo band. That's insane. What is that? 17 years ago, right?
Yeah.
So that's.
I was going to say 10 years ago. Boy, was I.
No. We were young, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's and even at this, people are going, hey, you got to bring this out. We'd love to hear this album along with your other solo material, of course. And I don't know if I'm cursed or whatever, but just trying to organize something like that, make it logistically viable as well, coordinate it with the other guys' schedules, because everybody's got their busy lives, and it's not that it's not doable. And and even Paul Logue was like, we definitely have to do this if it comes down to, because we're starting to work on new material for a follow-up to Beautiful Shade of Grey. Wow. And he was saying, if we can't make it work this time, because of your Dream Theater obligations, then we definitely have to, just find that window of opportunity and set it in stone. I said, I agree. And, because, yeah, we can't just keep waiting. I can't do that. Like time isn't a luxury for any of us. So,
No.
yeah, I got to do it.
But
Yeah,
maybe
for
it'd
sure.
make more sense if you guys do a follow up to this, like in the not so
Right.
future. You come out and you play a lot of selections from both albums, and then there you have.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's our thinking. So definitely. So, maybe it might still be a year or two before I can get around to doing that. But I have to do it before the opportunity is missed, because I think it would be an absolute shame to
Yeah.
not do it, for sure. Yeah.
Cool. Do you
Yeah.
have any favorite songs on the album?
Well, geez, I would say definitely Give and Take. What I Missed, I love a lot. And Am I Right, Am I Wrong, for sure. Uh, and Yeah, I would say that those three currently are probably my favorites right now. And that's not taking anything away from any of the others. I think, they all have something to say. Uh, Sunset Rune is very dear to me, as I'm sure written on about my brother. So that always kind of strikes a chord with me. And yeah, but I think, what I love is that and I haven't done it in quite a while now, but last time I listened to it through, it just has a really nice unfolding. I think
Yeah, it
the
flows.
dynamics are there for the listener. And yeah, so both Paul and I, all of us, we're very proud. I was just talking to Marco, was that 2 days ago, and he was like, I had so much doing that, so much fun doing that album. I loved it. It was because it was different for him as well, right? Because I said, you look at Marco. I mean, you're one of the best in the business, guitar players. And I said, but I want to take you on another ride, so to speak. And I really want to, this is what separates the men from the boys, I believe. When you can play acoustic and play it convincingly and beautifully, that's really a true mark of musicianship. And I think he did a superb job. Everyone did on this album. But Marco came back and he says, "I'm so glad you asked me to do this, because you're right. It's not my natural
Probably a
environment."
challenge for him, right? He's known as
Right.
a blazer and a shredder, and here he's playing some delicate stuff, and I was
Exactly.
impressed by that, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
And he just did such a wonderful job. And there's another beautiful human being as well. Like, he's just one of the nicest guys I've ever met. He's just so down to earth. And yeah, I mean, he, it was his just a quick story, but it was his brother, his older brother, that got him into playing guitar. So his older brother played guitar, and he told me I think he was like 12. And his brother was kind of like, he just kept coming up to Marco, go, "Hey man, you want to play something?" And then Marco said, at first I was like, no, I'm okay. And then he finally picked it up one day, and he said, like, within 6 months, his older brother's looking at him going, "Oh my God, you're better than I am," you know? And it was just like natural for him to grab that. And that's the way it is with all the greats, right? They just have a feel for it. The dexterity is there. It has to be I've always found when I speak to guitar players, and the greatest of them all, is that they're extremely smart. So I think most musicians are, right? I would have to say. And but just the way, like you were just talking about the solo tour that we did. And I remember I'd be walking around there and doing my, like, singing and stuff and warming up for the show. And frick, Marco, he'd be just like sitting around and he's like reading this and that. And I'd be going, "Hey man, are you not gonna warm up for this?" "Oh yeah, yeah, man." And he would pick up his guitar 10 minutes before the show and just start going through it, and then playing, and he'd walk on stage. And I was telling John Petrucci this, and he's like, "What?" I go, "Yeah." I said, "This guy, he picks up his guitar 10 minutes before a show, warms up within that 10 minutes, and he goes on stage, and it's effortless."
All the same.
And I'm like, I said, "You're a freak of nature."
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah, yeah, for sure.
That's cool. So let's
Yeah.
talk about Ramble On.
Yeah.
I mean, not everybody has the balls to cover Zeppelin, right? And
Yeah.
I got to that point in the CD the first time through, and I'm like, oh, wow, this is
Yeah.
pretty damn good. You guys did a good
Yeah.
job on that. So what?
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Well, originally I wanted to do That's the Way. That's the way. That's the way it ought to be. And then Paul came back to me and he says, hang on a second. He goes, if memory serves me correctly, I remember you doing an interview and you said one of your favorite Zeppelin songs was Ramble On. And I said, yeah, you're right. And he goes, then why aren't we doing Ramble On? And I go, I don't know, because I really, in my head, I'm hearing That's the Way. So anyways, he goes, well, are you opposed to it? I go, no. I said, if that's where you would like to go. And he said, I think as the ensemble sits here, with Marco and Christian and Chance, why not do a song like that where it just shows us under another light? And then I said, okay, but we're doing Zeppelin here. And I mean, we have to stay as true to, like, first of all, you can't bastardize a Zeppelin song. Like if we went in there and we started going, a ramble on and up, no, you get crucified. And first of all, I don't think you would get the release from Zeppelin as well. You always have to go through them to be able to cover one of their songs. And one of the things that came back to us was stay true to form. So stay true to the original. And we were like, that's already in the bag. Don't worry about it. Absolutely not. But it was a lot of fun. It's just we had a great time doing it. And I mean, everyone seems to have reacted quite positively to it. So it was cool.
It
was a lot.
fits on the album. It really fits on the album with the tone of the rest of the album. I think
Right.
that's what it was a perfect choice, I think, for the record.
Right. Exactly. Because, it does have that acoustic kind of feel to it, and then it builds, but it still stays in that realm or direction. And it was cool. Yeah. A lot of fun for sure.
So the Dream Theater train is ready to kind of
Mm-hmm.
hit the tracks and take off once again. Can you talk about the upcoming dates that are happening in 2023?
Yeah. So we leave on the 11th of January and we fly to Tel Aviv, and we're doing our first two shows are in Tel Aviv on the 13th and 14th, and then we fly to Spain and then continue from there, from Spain throughout Europe. I think we're over there. Our last show's February 21st in London at, I think, the Hammersmith. I'm not. I gotta go back there and look. I'm really bad for that. They just send me the dates and I'll just scan it really quick. Oh, okay, right, that's where we're going. But and then the I guess the plan is that we're supposed to do something in the spring throughout North America, and then we'll finally get over to Asia because we haven't been there. That was supposed to be our next leg when we finished in Glasgow in February of 2020, just before the pandemic. We were supposed to be in Asia April, and that never happened. So we have to get to Asia, go throughout Asia, and then I think that's it. I think we're winding down this tour, and then we'll take a bit of a break, and then start working on another album.
Working on the follow-up to A View from the Top of the World, right?
That's exactly.
Kind of the way it goes. Yeah.
But it probably, I can't. I mean, if I'm seeing the timeline the way that it usually unfolds, I can't see us going into the studio until beginning of 24.
Okay.
I don't think it would make sense to be in there before then, but don't quote me on that. Things always, change. And but yeah, so that's the plan of action at this point. So yeah, we're all looking forward to it. I mean, it's it's just great to be out there and be with our fans and just do what we love to do.
And I'm assuming, knowing you guys like I do, that you are mixing up the set list for this upcoming leg. Okay, yeah, that's the way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we that was one of the things that we had discussed when we were winding down the last of this. And we were over in or down in South America, and we were like, and it, you know, I brought it up. I said, we need to flip up the set list. And they're, yeah, you know, let's everybody start thinking about the songs and that. So yeah, I think what we have here is going to be extremely exciting for the fans. The new songs that we brought into the set, and then you'll be aware of it after the first show.
Yeah, exactly.
As everyone else will be. Oh, that's the songs they picked. You know,
I tend to, I mean, just to give you a little history of me with Dream Theater. So I have seen Dream Theater on every single tour since Images and Words. At least once a tour, if not more. So I've seen you guys 20 some odd times. And, you know, one of the great, you know, it's one thing to love a band and to go see them often, right? But what makes you guys, I mean, you guys are kind of like the Grateful Dead of metal or progressive rock, right? Because you guys historically, and even more so earlier, where you would change set list nightly, weekly, that sort of thing. And even now, you know, every year is a different set. And I thought this last tour of North America was a great set list because it was a lot of really unexpected things, songs you haven't heard so often. And I remember my wife saying to me, and she's not a fan of this style of music, right? She's like, you're going to go see Dream Theater again? Haven't you seen them enough? I'm like, but hon, it's like they play a different show every time I see them. And I hear songs that I haven't heard in 15 years or never, right? So that's what makes it so exciting. And I think that's, you know, kudos to you guys for just keeping it fresh because you're seeing something different every single time. And I can go see you guys every year and go home and saying, wow, that was great. And that was different. And that's
right. So you see, everything you're saying is a true testament to why we do that. Because we you know, we've always felt like if you don't keep mixing it up, if you don't keep bringing them something that, you know, our fans have not heard, hey, when's the last time they played this? Oh my God, you know, that creates the thrill, and the unexpected is always welcome, especially in a musical environment, you know. And so thanks. That's great. Now, do you remember where we played on the Images? Where did you see us? Do you remember? Club.
It might have been the Chance in Poughkeepsie, New York, because I saw you guys early on.
Okay. Yeah. It would have been. We were there. Yeah.
Yeah, I was at a lot of really cool shows. I was at the Beacon Theater show where you guys played all of Master of Puppets. I was at Eric Sherinian's last show right before Christmas. I was at a lot of them. Yeah.
Wow, man. Holy smokes. Well, you're a true fan. Thank you. That's awesome.
Welcome. Thank you, actually. Thank you. So, it's cool. Wow. I mean, it's like the reason I bring it up is because I go see a lot of my favorite bands, you know, fairly regularly, and some of them just play the same set year after year. And sometimes you can take a couple of years off, and then you get the hankering to go see them, and you go check. You hear all these familiar tunes, but I like being surprised, and I usually go see you guys with my brother. My brother and I are very, very big Dream Theater fans. And I generally will not look at the set list of prior shows until like maybe the night of the show and like right before the show.
Oh, great.
And then I'll be like, oh, wow, this is, you know, because I like to have a little bit of element of surprise. It's hard to do with the internet. It's hard to do that these days. But
wow. Wow, you got some willpower there, because I mean, like, you know, if we're playing in January and then you got to wait until like May.
I just ignore it, James. I ignore it.
Yeah, well, I guess that's all you can do. That's great.
Yeah.
Well,
so my last question for you, and this is kind of a selfish one, because I have such a long history with you guys, and you know, it's and I've spoken to all of you pretty much with the exception of John.
John Mayung or John Petrucci?
John Mayung, yeah. Sorry.
Oh, okay. John. Well, we haven't spoken with him either, so that's okay.
There you go. All right.
Okay. Right. Okay.
Seeing you guys smiling and reuniting with Mike Portnoy in recent months at shows and things like that, I think makes a lot of us longtime fans really happy, because it's almost like, you know, to us, you guys will always be one big family. And I think with the fans, we're all a big family. And I know there was all those years of whatever, we don't know together.
Turmoil.
So, So how cool, you know, I've already talked to John Petrucci about this. I've spoken to Mike about it. So how was it for you to kind of reconnect after all this time and, you know, just kind of move on to this next part of our lives, and we'll do it together. I mean, because now, you know, they've worked together. You guys have hung out at shows together. What's it like for you personally?
Well, it was cathartic, there's no doubt about that. And I think, you know, like from speaking with Mike, and you know, I just saw them in November, went to John Petrucci's solo tour when they came to Toronto, and Mike and I were talking, and I think, you know, like we're right back to like goofing around and joking around with one another, and just talking like, hey man, what's up, as if we never missed a step. I think that the unfortunate is that, you know, uh, people have their pride, and people don't want to necessarily come to terms with what it is that created the separation or the division. And I think that if, you know, if we had been maybe more of that rationale, that maybe this wouldn't have gone on as long as it did, and it shouldn't have, you know, because I mean, it's, what do you gain? You gain nothing. You know, you're just throwing grenades at one another, and it's just it's not a good thing, man. It's not a good thing in any standing or situation. So yeah, I think it's really cool that we're back, you know, and we're talking, and we're having a good time together and laughing, and you know, I'd prefer this over anything else. And it, you know, Mike feels the same way. He's just like, oh man, it was great seeing you. Like, he texted me the day after I was down in Toronto, hey man, it was so cool seeing you and the family. It was great to hang and speak, and you know, yeah. And I was like, yeah, for sure, man. You know, and then we're like sending back and forth. Like I sent there was a picture of Mike and I out there from way back. It must have been images or maybe part of the Awake tour. And I said, look at these cool looking dudes. What happened? And he's laughing, you know. So we're just, you know, we're back to doing what we used to do when we were in a band together years and years ago. And yeah, it's a good place for sure.
That's good. I'm really happy to hear that,
Yeah.
because I think the media always makes things worse than it actually is.
Yeah.
It doesn't help.
I mean, you know, everybody knows, like there was a riff. There's no doubt about it, and I think part of that was that, you know, that Mike and I, before the riff started to become a reality, were great friends, you know, and we were the best of friends. Like we had so much fun, not only being in a band together, but even just like shooting the shit, hanging out, having a drink together, whatever, you know, all that stuff. And you know, so I think when it comes to a point where somebody that might have been one of your closest and dearest people in your life, when that division starts to happen, it's even more intense, and it's even harder to accept. And then that's when you lash out, right? Because you're upset deep down inside. You know, it's a little bit much to handle for anyone. Yeah, for sure.
Did you guys?
But I'm not going to see a psychiatrist over it. That's for damn sure.
Right. Exactly. But you know, I mean, we've all, and we talked about it earlier here. It's like we're all a little older and wiser, and I think you've had a lot of time to reflect, and both of your careers, everybody's careers have, you know, continued on and flourished, and you know, in the end, let's all just be friends again. We don't, you know, and just continue on doing what we're doing, and that's a good thing. So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And before I let you go, I do want to thank Rick Labonte, because I know you ran it. Rick Labonte is a contributor here on the channel, and you to him at the recent
he's a very nice guy.
Show. So thanks again, Rick, for kind of helping make this happen. I've been wanting to talk to you for a while, but you know,
I know it's unfortunate it took this long, but you know, he explained to me what kind of a fan you are, and you know how you followed the band, and that yeah, you're just a great guy, you know. So I guess you guys have known each other for a while. And I said, absolutely, you know, here's can you just get in touch, and then I'll make sure that it's set up. But yeah, I'm glad we did this, man. This was a lot of fun for sure.
Well, I will throw out an open invitation to you, James. Anytime you want to come on, we have lots of fun programming here on the channel.
Well, let's
Mike has been on here many times talking about all sorts of cool things and taking part in stuff. So if you're
maybe I'll get you in touch with Paul, and you could talk to Paul and get his perspective. Paul Logue, you
absolutely, I would love to.
And because he's I think you'd have such a great time speaking with him about music in general, and as well this album that we did and together. But I can definitely speak to him about that.
Sounds good. Well. I would love that.
Okay.
So
all right. Well, you take care. Hey, happy holidays, and
thank you, James.
A great new year, and I'll see you, I guess, at the next DT.
You absolutely will. Either New York or New Jersey. I will be there. And thanks
Perfect.
everybody for watching. Best of luck to James and the rest of the Dream
Yes.
Theater guys on the upcoming tour. And
Thank
visit
you.
us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. For James LaBrie, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good rest of the weekend, everybody. See you
Right.
tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Okay. Thanks, Pete.